So as I was saying, we're going to be joined by one of our special guests here at York University. We have got Karen Warner, who is the manager of scholarships and bursaries here at York University. Who'll be taking us through all things finance related questions and has a quick presentation for us where we hope to hit on all the different things that you might be wondering, whether that's tuition fees, scholarships, bursaries, financial aid, working on campus, and anything else related to funding your student or your family member's journey through in joining us here at York University. Before we get started, though, I do want to pass it off to one of my staff, Ariba, who will go through a little bit of an assessment to get the temperature of the room and see where folks are joining us from today and also get your kind of expectations of the session. So, Ariba, I'm going to pass it off to you, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Let me just start by sharing my screen. So I asked that you all go to menti.com. The site is up there on the screen. And then you can also use the code 46701989 to join. Let me put this in a bigger screen. So I'll just wait for people to join. And if you can just let us know which city or country you're joining us today from. We're just trying to gauge the room with these questions, sort of see where our audience is from. It's also in the chat, the link to the Menti, and then also the code. Okay, Brampton, nice. Okay. Anybody from any different countries, or are we still in Canada? I'll just give it a second for folks to join. Toronto. Expected. So as the words get bigger, that means more people are from that area. So Brampton's up there. North York. Okay, we're staying in Canada for now. Anybody from outside Ontario? Okay, Halifax. Okay, since there's quite a few people in the room, I'll still wait for people to join. Might be having trouble. So again, if you go to menti.com and then just put in that code, you'll be able to join the Menti. We have just a few questions for everybody to gauge the room, gauge what our audience looks like. Okay, you can join at any point, so I'll move forward to the next question, but feel free to still join. Let's move on. So what brings you to today's session? Are you a parent or family member of an upcoming spring or summer student? Are you an upcoming spring or summer student? Are you looking to learn more general information about York University or a different category? Okay, we got an equal amount of everything. Okay, we got some more of a parent or family member. We got some upcoming spring or summer students, some others. I'm wondering what that other is, but that's why that category is there. Okay, we got a lot of parent or family members. Also, if the Menti isn't working for any of you folks, feel free to just put your answers in the chat too. We just love to get to know more about our audience, so that's sort of the purpose of this. Okay, I think people are done answering this, so we'll move forward with the next question. So if you could please rank the following York-related topics that you would most like to learn about. So there's enrollment and finances, student community organizations, community and city transit, campus building and residence, York history and values, campus recreation and athletics, or other. Sorry, my Alexa went off. So yeah, you can just rank which ones you would most like to learn about. Today, obviously, we're going to be covering sort of like finances part of it. But it would be nice to know, if you would like to get to know some of these other sections as well, these other options that we have up here. And by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to get to know, where these other sessions will be happening, where you can learn about some of these other things as well. And hopefully we'll get to some of these sections in today's session too. Okay, commuting and city transit is the second ranked up there. Campus and recreation and athletics is close to there too. Student community organizations next. So that's moving up. Great. Campus building and residence is also up there. And then there are other options. I'd love to know what those others are as well. And then York history and values. That is also up there. Okay. Okay, so I think we've gauged our room. That's great. Thank you so much for participating in the Menti. I'll also be doing one at the end of the session today. But for now, I'll pass it off to Karen. Stop sharing. Okay, take it away, Karen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just give me one moment to bring up my slide deck. We want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And I hope that you find today's session very helpful. My name is Karen Warner. I'm part of the Student Financial Services team here at York University, and is specifically my portfolio is scholarships and awards and the work study program, both of which I'll be speaking about today. So a couple of items that we have on the agenda. So a brief discussion about what to expect for your costs for attending post-secondary, scholarships, awards, and bursaries, financial aid, specifically OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Program, our work study program, and what it looks like in terms of your student account and how you make payments and when you make payments at York University. So I'm going to start with estimated expenses. It's very high level. Right now, for students in most of our liberal arts and sciences programs who are taking a full course load, which we consider 30 credits, it's 100% course load. The domestic tuition fee sits at around $7,200 for the year, so for the full fall winter academic year, and about $35,000 for our international students. And then we estimate for textbooks and other materials, you're probably looking at about $200 to $300 per course for those items. Most all of our programs are tuition is based on a per credit basis. So it depends on how many courses the student enrolls in, what their tuition will actually be. The only program that is a flat rate tuition amount is our Bachelor of Design program. But everything else, as I said, the amount that a student is paying will be largely dependent on how many credits they add. But there's a number of other factors that when you're thinking about planning for post-secondary and your students' academic year that need to be taken into consideration. One is the health plan. I'm going to talk to you a bit more in detail about that later in the presentation, but all full-time students are enrolled in a health plan. Transportation and parking. We are a huge commuter campus. Many of our students are coming in through public transit. We actually have 2 subway stations right on our campus, and of course, many students are driving in. So factoring in the cost of that transportation, whether it's parking or a TTC pass, personal expenses, of course, and then whatever your student decides they want to do in terms of their living situation. So of course, we have many options for students to live on campus in our residences. Many of those residences The student would also be required to purchase a meal plan, or a student may elect to live off campus and rent somewhere off campus. And of course, then you have to factor in the costs associated with that. So groceries and internet and other factors. So we encourage you, when you're thinking about preparing your student for coming to school, that you look at it holistically. Yes, the tuition, but actually the full amount of costs that a student may incur as they're going to post-secondary. I'm going to go into our scholarships and awards now. So we do have a number of automatically awarded scholarships that students will receive if they're coming to York University. So York University, for your York University Automatic Entrance Scholarship, this is given to all domestic students coming to us directly out of high school who are admitted with a final average of 80% or higher. This scholarship is renewable, so they will receive the scholarship every year as long as they maintain an A average or an 8.0 GPA, and they take a minimum of 24 credits each year, which equates to about an 80% course load. In addition to this scholarship, anybody who receives this scholarship, we put a lot of value on our students experiencing international study abroad experiences. We have many options available to students, and we encourage them to take advantage of those opportunities. So if a student comes in and they receive our automatic entrance scholarship, and at any point in their degree, they elect to take any kind of study abroad experience, they will also receive an additional $1,500 through our Travel Abroad Award. And that'll be done automatically. We will monitor, and we work with our colleagues in York International to identify students, so they don't need to seek that out. It will automatically be given to them. In addition, for this year, for this fall 2024, we have a number of international scholarships that are going to be automatically awarded. So for any international applicant who is paying international tuition rates and coming in with an average of 85% or higher, they are going to get a one-time only scholarship or award of $7,500. Anybody below the 85 will get $5,000. And we have any transfer students coming in who get at least 24 credits in transfer credit will receive $2,500. And again, these are one-time only awards. Students must meet all of their admissions conditions to be eligible for this funding, and they must be paying international tuition rates. There are two faculties in addition, our Lausanne School of Engineering and our Faculty of Science, that offer automatically awarded scholarships for any student coming in with an average of 90% or higher. So those scholarships are valued at $2,000. They're given to both international and domestic students and will be awarded in addition to these other scholarships that students may already qualify for. We had an entrance awards application cycle for both our domestic and international students. Those application cycles have now closed, and offers are going out right now. So if you took advantage of the application, you may be getting notification from us in the next coming weeks if you've been selected to receive any of the awards that were available through the application. So when students are applying for scholarships, awards, and bursaries at York University, they're always going to be notified by email if they are the successful recipient of such funding. And that funding will always be applied directly to the student's York student account first, to reduce any outstanding balance that they have owing to the university. So for incoming students, in order to receive their scholarship or award, they must, of course, accept their offer of admission. They need to enroll in courses, and they have to have paid their deposit. And I'm going to speak to you about the deposits in the next slide before any funding will be issued. The scholarship funds are posted to the students' accounts in August, in advance of the August statement, so that when you get your bill in August, which is for the fall tuition amounts, the scholarship funds will have already been applied to the account. In the event that you're receiving funding that exceeds what you owe to the university, and it creates a credit on your account, you actually can request a refund. So if you visit our refund request page, that's where you would go to submit that request yourself, but also it is where you would go to provide us with your banking information. So York does issue all refunds through electronic transfer, and we do require students to provide us with their banking information so that we can issue any funding to you directly to your bank account. If you're receiving any kind of funding from York University and you're an Ontario student who's applying for OSAP, There will be questions about scholarships and awards on your OSAP application. We ask that you do not report any funding that you're getting directly from York University, as we're going to report that on your behalf. So you can, if you receive anything outside of the university, you're applying for any external scholarships, that you will report. Anything issued to you by York, you do not need to report on your OSAP application. So I mentioned briefly about the deposits. So for our domestic students, there is a $300 deposit that is paid after you begin enrolling in your courses. So I believe it's about 15 days you have from the time you start adding your courses to pay the $300 deposit. That deposit is applied towards your tuition balance and reduces what you owe for the fall. For our international students, the deposit is a $1,500 non-refundable acceptance deposit that is due when you accept your offer of admission. And once you have provided that deposit, that is when we will provide you with the provincial attestation letter that you need to be able to apply for your study permit. So again, this deposit for international students is non-refundable. The only instance in which we would refund the deposit is if your study permit was denied, and we would require proof of that for you to be able to get the refund on that. Otherwise, as I said, it's non-refundable. The $300 deposit for domestic students is refundable up until the start of the study period. And when courses start, then you start losing money on that deposit. The only other payment that you would need to make at this point is if you are taking advantage of residence. There is a residence deposit also. Again, it will go towards the cost of your residence. So though right now, that is the only financial commitment. So your deposit, $300 for domestic, $1,500 for international, and the residence deposit as required. So I'm going to move into financial aid. I'm going to focus mostly on the Ontario Student Assistance Program, but I know we had somebody on the call who's from Halifax. There are financial aid programs available in all of the provinces. So if your student is in Halifax but coming to Ontario, they will apply for their funding directly through your home province. And if you visit our financial aid page, we'll give you the link to the that particular landing page. For Ontario students, the program, as I mentioned, is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. It is a combination of both loans and grants that students are automatically assessed for when they submit the application. It is for a student who's Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or protected person. They must be a resident of Ontario. They can be studying both full-time or part-time. There are programs for both full-time and part-time, and they must demonstrate financial need. The application for OSAP is not yet available. We do expect it to go live either the end of April or into May, but there are a couple of things that you can do right now to prepare yourself. So first of all, there is an OSAP aid estimator. If you visit the OSAP site, you can do this, go through this tool. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and it will give you a ballpark figure of what type of funding you may or may not qualify for through OSAP. The other thing you can do right now is to go onto this platform and do the registration. So create your account and your profile on the OSAP site. What that will do is just make it easier when the application opens. You will have already done that step. And by having the account already registered, when the application opens, the ministry will send you a notification to let you know that you can now go in and start your application. So when applying for OSAP, again, it's completely online, the application process. For students coming into the university from high school, the ministry does consider you a dependent until you've been out of high school for 6 years for Ontario aid, which means parental information is going to be required on the OSAP. And they will ask specifically for income as reported on the 2023 income tax form. So mom and dad has to have already completed or submitted their income tax return. As I said, you do all of the questions online. You're going to go in, you're going to select the institution, select the program. It's going to ask you to indicate the percentage of course load that you want to take. That's how we assess the educational costs on the back end. Once you've completed the application and submitted it, it will then present you with a page that will indicate what documents you need to provide. So one is this Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement. Every student is required to complete that. It's basically you signing off that you will be responsible for any loan funding that you get as part of the OSAP assessment. There's a signature and declarations page, which will be signed by both the student and by their parents if applicable. And this gives the ministry authorization to verify any of the information that you've put on the application. And then there may be other documents that it asks for. So for example, if you indicated that you're a permanent resident, it may ask you to provide a copy of your PR documentation. All of these documents, you're just going to scan and upload directly into the ministry portal. We encourage you to apply very early. More than half of York University's student population receives funding through OSAP. So we're a very busy office. Most of that processing is done directly at York University. And on average, it could take anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks for an OSAP application to run through its full course and for there to be an assessment. So again, we strongly encourage you to do the application as early as possible. This will allow you to get an assessment early so that you can plan accordingly. Once the application is finished and all the documents have been processed, you will be alerted to go to the website to go log into your portal to see your status, and you'll see something called the notice of assessment. And the notice of assessment will give you the full breakdown of what you've been assessed for. So how much is loan, how much is grant, how much of it is federal funding, how much of it is provincial funding. At that point, there's nothing else that you need to do. You just need to wait about 10 days before classes begin. York will start a verification process or a confirmation process where we will then go into the system and say, yes, Karen Warner is a student at York. She's taking the program she said she was taking. She's taking the course load she said she was taking. And that will trigger the release of the funds. Now, when you're doing the application, you will see that it will ask you for banking information. That's because when you're being assessed for financial aid, it's not only taking into consideration your educational costs, but it's also assessing all students for a living allowance. So it is not uncommon for students' OSAP entitlement to be higher than their tuition. And that is because, as I said, it's giving you money for books, transportation, housing, all of that. So when we confirm your status with the ministry and say, yes, you're a student, we also at that time tell them how much money you're owing for the upcoming billing cycle. When the ministry releases the funds, they will send the money directly to York University to be applied to your student account, whatever you're owing. But if the entitlement, if the amount that is being released to you exceeds what you owe, the difference will go into your bank account. Okay. So for example, if you're owing 4,500, they're releasing 6,000, 4,500, you'll see on your student account reflected as a payment from the National Student Loan Center. The remaining 1,500 you will see in your bank account. So as I mentioned earlier, when you apply for OSAP, you're automatically assessed for both loans and grants. Loans, of course, repayable, grants, non-repayable funding. So one of the things that students don't always realize is that you do have the option to just take the grant portion. So when you get your notice of assessment, at that time, if you want to try to navigate or, to go into the academic year without that debt, and just take the grant portion, you can notify the ministry and they will just release the grant funding to you. That doesn't mean that you're losing the loan funding though. If during the academic year you find that you're struggling financially and you actually need access to the loan portion, you can let the financial aid office know and then we can arrange to release the loan portion to you. So it's a good option for students who don't want to incur any debt. On the application, there's a couple of things that you are not required to report. So one is your RESP, so a Registered Education Savings Plan. If you have been putting money aside in a savings plan, you will not be asked to report that on the OSAP application. And if you're an Indigenous learner and you're receiving any type of funding from your band, you will not be required to report that on your application either. Okay, so those are exempt. In addition, we know that many of our students are also working while they're in school full-time. The ministry allows you to earn $5,600 per term, so just over $11,000 for the academic year, without having no impact on your OSAP entitlement. So students who do need to take a part-time job to help get by do not have to fear that their OSAP funding will be reduced as a result of that, as long as they stay below that threshold. It does require some budgeting. So your funding is always going to be released in 2 installments, one in the fall and the remainder in the winter. So in December, January. So we do encourage you as part of your planning to create a budget so that you can track your expenses and make sure that you can, sustain your expenses with the funding that you're receiving and the other resources you have to add to that. Okay, so I spoke a little bit about students working, and I wanted to share with you that we have many opportunities for students to work right on campus with us. We have a program called the Work Study Program, which offers, it says 1,600. It's that number is steadily growing. I think we're closer to the 1,800 position range right now. These are part-time employment opportunities that are available to our undergraduate students. Under 3 programs. So one is research at York. So if you're a student who is interested in working on a research project with one of our faculty members and our graduate students, there's many opportunities for you to do that through the RAY program. We have our LEAP, Leadership Engagement and Ambassadorship Program. So if you've participated in any of our events, including today's event, some of these students who are joining us and working with us today are probably students that are employed through our LEAP program and who are engaged in delivering programming for our students. And then we have many opportunities through general work study. So these are positions where students support us in an administrative capacity in our offices. And we deeply value all of the contributions that our students are making to York University. So these opportunities are available to both international and domestic students. For our domestic students, they can be either full-time or part-time students and still participate in the program. For our international students, they do have to maintain full-time enrollment status as a requirement of their study permits. And of course, these are all paid opportunities. So there's many benefits to working in work study. The program has been around for many, many years. I myself was a work study student a long time ago. And amongst the advantages, of course, is that, you're working on campus and you're going to get to meet other staff and faculty and students. Competitive wages, anywhere from minimum wage up to over $25 an hour for some of our rate positions. And in most cases, the hours are capped to 15 hours per week. And our focus is really on helping you to be as successful as you can be as a student. So we work those hours around your class schedule. Typically, if you're hired into any one of these positions, we'll ask you for your course schedule, and we will work the hours around that so that it's not too onerous for you, particularly for like the general work study. Because we're open 8:30 to 4:30, most of our offices Monday to Friday. That means that students are free in the evenings or the weekends, and they don't have that work commitment at that time. So it's a wonderful option for students who are looking to supplement. There is an application process for work study. The application is largely, again, just to gauge your course enrollment to see if you qualify under that criteria. For our international students, we do require you to provide a copy of your study permit just so we can verify that you have been authorized to work in Canada. And then the second stage of it is really the same as applying for any job. So you visit either York University's career sites, where we list all of our work study and LEAP positions, or our career center site where we list our RAY positions, and you go through a normal application process. So you're going to create a profile, you're going to upload a resume and a cover letter and apply directly to any positions that are interesting to you, and go through a normal interview process, etc. So these opportunities are available to students fall, winter, and in the summer. And in most cases, once you get hired into a department, they will keep you on from year to year. So it is sustainable employment also. So the last thing I'm going to touch on today is really student accounts and what that looks like at York University. So York is the same as many companies. We do not issue invoices in paper format anymore. All of our billing is done online. So students, when they come, they will create a secure York Passport account, and that is how they're going to access their student account statement. We do issue monthly statements. So around the 18th to the 20th of every month, the student will receive an email telling them that their statement is now available for them to view. And all of the students' financial transactions will be reflected on that statement. So tuition, if they received any awards, their residence charges, their meal plan charges, all of that will be itemized on that statement. There's 2 views that they will see of the student account statement. One is the actual monthly statement, and then one is a full transactions view. So every transaction in and out of their account, they'll be able to view. When making payments to the university for our domestic students, you make those payments through the bank, through phone or online banking. York University is the payee, And the 9-digit reference number that you got at the point of application to the university will become your student number, and that is your unique account number for any payments that you are making. For international students, we have a couple of providers that they can make payments to. So they can use either CIBC or Western Union Business Solutions to make payments to the university through those two platforms. So I mentioned at the top of the presentation about the health and dental plan. Oh, I see a typo. My apologies. It's not $2,780. Okay, so the health and dental plan, as I mentioned, all full-time students are enrolled in a health and dental plan. It costs $280 a year for the plan, and it runs from September to August 30th. So it's a full 12-month cycle. Again, students are automatically put into the plan, but you do have the option to opt out of the plan if you have coverage through a comparable insurance plan. So it can't be your OHIP. It has to be a private insurance. So for example, if your parents, you're covered under health and dental under your parents' employer, you can opt out of this plan. The opt-out typically starts in the summer. I believe they're going to bill you usually around August. If you visit the York Federation of Students Health Plan site, their information about the opt-out will be there. The deadline to opt out is usually about the first week of October, and you'll need to put in the name, the company that you are covered under, and the policy number for you to do the opt-out. For our international students, there is no opt-out option for you. So you must register in the health plan. And on top of the York Federation of Students plan, you also must take the UHIP, so the University Health Insurance Plan. So it comes to about just over $1,000 for 12 months for the YFS and UHIP plan combined. And again, for our international students, there is no option to opt out of it. It is a mandatory plan that you must take. In terms of payments, we mentioned the deposits. So again, at this over the course of the summer, as you accept your offers of admission, you start enrollment, you're going to start paying your deposits. The next relevant due date for the fall is September 10th. So on September 10th, you will pay for any fall courses. So those are courses that run September to December. You'll pay 50% of any full year courses. So those are courses that run the full academic year. They run September and they end in April. If you're in residence or have a meal plan, you'll also pay 50% of that in September. And if you're taking the health plan, you're going to pay that usually in September if they've built it in August. The next significant due date is January 10th. So this is the remaining 50% of your full year courses, your residence, your meal plan, and any winter courses that you're enrolled in. So if you are in a course that starts in January and ends in April, the fees for that will be due in January. Now, we're often asked about payment plans. Can you make payment plans? We don't actually have a formal process for students to make a payment plan. We encourage you to pay what you can by the due dates. After the due date has come and gone, any outstanding balance on the account will be subject to a monthly late fee at a rate of 1.09%. Okay. And as the academic year progresses, so come say November, if we don't see any significant attempts or to reduce the balance, we do put up enrollment blocks. So we will not take you out of any courses that you are currently enrolled in, but we would prohibit you from adding any additional courses to your course load. This is just a sample of what the student account statement will look like. This is from a couple of years ago, but it's a good example of the timing. So in this example, you see the student has added their courses. They come in with a balance of $8,800. This is, of course, a domestic student. You see that they received a scholarship of $2,500 that was applied to the account, and they were billed for the health plan, which was $270 at that time, which gives them a new balance of $65.94. Of that $65.94, the amount that's actually due for the September 10th date is that $1,712. So this is what you will see when you are able to view your student account statements, a full itemized list of course adds, course drops, any transactions, what the total amount is that is due, and of that amount, how much is due by the due date. I get questions sometimes about the registered education savings plan. Many of us have them for our kids. And there is a self-serve option for families to be able to access the form that is required to withdraw those funds. So once your student has enrolled in their courses and they've paid their deposit, usually around May or June, if you just go onto York's platform, there's the link there for where to access the letters. The student logs in with their passport York and indicates what type of letter it is that they are looking for, and it will produce a letter. We have an agreement with many of the major RESP companies where they will accept the form that you are able to download. So once the student logs in, it will prepare a customized letter with their name, their program of study, all of the information, their year level, everything that is needed for you to submit to the RESP company so you can withdraw those funds. So again, it's a self-serve option. If you need something more formal, if the company is requiring something that is, signed and stamped by the university, you can come in on campus, and they do charge $25 to access that letter. So to wrap it up, if you have any questions about financial aid at York University, you need any support as you're going through, the Student Support and Advising Team is located in the Bennett Center for Student Services, and they are our frontline services that deals with any inquiries related to your student account, to your OSAP, work studies, scholarships, any of those questions. So they have many ways in which you can speak with a representative. You can call through the phone line. You can book meetings both in person or via Zoom. And you can send an email to RS Check with your inquiry. We just ask that you provide your name and your York student number so we can ensure that we're answering the question appropriately. And if you have any questions specifically about scholarships, awards, and bursaries, we have a direct email account at bursary@yorku.ca that you can reach out, and my team would be happy to assist you with any questions you have there. So that ends the formal presentation. I'm just going to stop sharing. And at this point, if we have any questions in the chat, or if anybody has any questions that they want to take themselves off of mute and ask, we're happy to address any questions you may have.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for the presentation. Just one question that we received in the chat. It goes as follows. Does accepting OSAP loan have any impacts on the application's credit score?
On your credit rating? No. If you apply for OSAP and receive funding, it doesn't impact your credit rating at this time. And when you go into repayment. So, I mean, while you're receiving OSAP, there's no payments. You're not making any payments on any of that loan, and you're not accruing any interest on that loan. It remains interest-free for the duration of time that you're a full-time student. You do start repayment 6 months after your last period of full-time studies. So presumably, you finish your 4-year degree, you finish courses in April, you go into repayment in November. And at that point, it could impact your credit rating. If you don't, make any attempts to make payments, or you're missing your payments at that time, that's when you would see an impact on your credit rating. But the National Student Loan Center has many programs in place to assist students who are struggling with loan repayment, to help you reduce those amounts or defer the start of your repayment. So there's a lot of options there if you are initially not able to start making those payments.
Great, thank you so much. The next one we have here is, do international students have to pay the tuition deposit worth $1,500 after they enroll for their courses?
Yeah, the $1,500 for international students is actually due immediately upon acceptance of your offer of admission. So even before you've added courses, once you accept your offer of admission, you are required to make the $1,500 deposit so that we can release the form to you that's needed for you to apply for your study permit. Okay, so for domestic students, they can wait until they've added courses before they make their deposit. But for international students, once they accept their offer of admission, we would be looking for their deposit at that point.
Great, thank you. This next parent is asking about their student. So it says that they live off campus, so they have like a non-school address. But the parent is like in Ontario. Does this still let like their student qualify for to apply for OSAP?
They can apply for OSAP. The ministry does, of course, expect students to live at home, and as it's more economical for the student. So they will ask what the distance is from the parent's primary home to school on the application. I mean, if the parent lives, such a distance that it's going to take the student like 2 hours on public transit to come to school, they take that into account, that it makes more sense then for the student to live away from home. But all of that will be addressed as you're going through the application. There are questions that speak to that.
Great, thank you. The next one, next person would just like some clarification on the health and dental fee. Is it $270 or $2,700?
No, sorry, that was a typo. I was updating the slide. It used to be $270. I believe it's actually about $283 currently for domestic students for the YFS health plan. And then there's the additional, if you're an international student, you also pay the additional 700 and some odd dollars for the UHIP. So for international students in total, it's just over $1,000. And for domestic students, it's about that $280.
Awesome, thank you. And can a parent pay the fees through their personal account, or do all fees have to be paid through a student account?
Through their bank account? Yes, a parent can pay the student's account through their own banking account. Yes, they're just going to, as I said, put York University as the company that they're making the payment to, and they're going to use the student's 9-digit student number as the account number that they're making the payment to. The thing is that parents won't have access to view the statements, right? Because the statements sit behind the protected Passport York. So only students will be able to actually view the statements unless they will have to provide their parents with the statement, or, and I'm not suggesting that they do that, give them access, the password access, so that they can view the statements. But yeah, the statement will not be issued to the parent. It will be issued to the student, but parents can certainly make the payments.
Awesome, thank you. And can tuition payments be done using credit cards?
We don't accept credit card payments directly at the university. I'm not sure if your bank will allow you to draw off of your credit card to make a payment. You'd have to investigate that with your financial institution, but we don't accept directly at your payment via credit card now.
Okay, thank you. And what kind of work is provided for students on campus?
There's many opportunities for work. As I mentioned, there's a number of positions that are administrative that will work in offices, and some are frontline, some are behind the scenes doing document processing. Our athletics area hires like 400 students over the course of an academic year in various capacities. So it's really too many for me to speak of. But there are a lot of opportunities that can really supplement, what you're doing in the classroom. If you're doing accounting, for example, there are work study jobs that focus on that type of thing. You might work in payroll or our finance office and do some work related to what you're studying. If you're doing communications, or there are jobs that are tied to social media. So there's many opportunities that can really supplement what it is you're doing in your academic studies.
Thank you. And how much can a student receive in grants? Is it are grants like given as a one-time payment, or is it given throughout the time that the student is enrolled in a program at York?
If you're talking about grants through OSAP, I can't give you a specific amount because, of course, a student's entitlement will vary depending on their personal situation. But students can and will be assessed for grants every year. OSAP is something that you would actually need to apply for every year. So when you're submitting an OSAP application, you're not applying for 4 years of study. You're applying for the upcoming academic year. And next summer, you would then submit an application again for the next academic year, etc. So every year you're going to reapply, and every year you're going to be assessed for loans and grants. And the amount of grant funding you receive is really dependent on your financial need level and what your personal circumstances are.
Awesome, thank you. This parent is just wondering if they pay the $1,500 but fail to mobilize the funding for their child to join, will the funding be reimbursed? They're wondering this because they depend a lot on scholarships and they're still not sure if they would be getting like all of them or like the amount they would be receiving through scholarships.
I'm assuming this is an international student, if they're saying 1,500. As I mentioned in the presentation, the 1,500 is non-refundable. It would only be refunded if you apply for a study permit and your application is denied. So we have sent out the offers for the most part for international scholarships. We're just waiting now for those students to respond to us. And then we may do a second round of offers. But if you are relying heavily on the scholarship and you haven't heard anything yet, I'm not sure that you would want to proceed if you are not able to afford to lose that $1,500.
Okay, thank you. This next question is, does accepting OSAP loans have an impact on applicants' credit score? I think you might have already addressed that
Yes, I
one, but
think
if you mind
we
just
talked
like
about,
reminding them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to address that? Yeah, so I mean, it's a loan, right? So if you default on your loan, then yes, it will have an impact on your credit score. Taking the loan initially does not have any impact on your credit score. And as I said, while you're in school full time, you're not making any payments or paying any interest on that loan. Where it may have an impact is when you've completed your studies and you go into the repayment phase. If you default on the loan, then yes, that will most certainly have an impact on your credit score.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions for now. Would you mind just like reminding everyone where they can contact you via email so we can also like drop it in the chat?
Well, if you have any questions about scholarships, awards, and bursaries, you can email bursary@yorku.ca. If in general, for any of your questions related to finances, you would contact Student Support and Advising, so you can look them up on our website. And they have all the information there about the types of questions that they are equipped to address and the various methods in which you can get a hold of a representative. As I said, they do offer options for both in-person and Zoom meetings. You can call through the phone lines, you can send emails, etc. So there's a variety of ways in which you can get assistance with any questions that you have related to your student account. If you are applying for OSAP and you have questions directly related to your OSAP application, York University would be your contact for that. So you will not contact the ministry. All of the processing for OSAP will happen here at the university. So you will contact us directly through the channels I've just mentioned if you have questions about OSAP, about student accounts, etc., all through Student Support and Advising.